welcome to Annunciation of the Lord, Father Rob Arsenault. And it's well, it's a little early, but it's time for the pastor's chat. I'm the pastor and I'm chatting. So it's Wednesday. I usually do this around 8. I just had to get on just a little bit early tonight to do my little presentation and then I have a bit of homework I have to get to. So a lot going on. It's a lot happening. This is this transition time of, we're into the fall now, deep into the fall. In fact, winter is approaching, and I saw snow in the forecast. That's why I'm saying that. But school starts up and the pace picks up and life in the parish picks up. It's kind of a natural flow of things. We have Alpha running. This is this thing I've been talking about quite a bit now. It's just so pleased with our Alpha program and the Youth Alpha we're running at the same time, and it just seems to be just going very well. So big shout out to the team and all the support people, people the food and the setup, and there's a lot of elements to this. And to our youth programming, I think our young people have been really energized in reaching out to their peers. So good stuff. So really quite pleased about that. What's coming up, at least, and it didn't quite make it into the news. We did 2 things, actually 3 things, but I'll get to the third in a second. We did a life chain a couple Sundays ago, and that's where we do a little witness for pro-life, and this is something the parish has taken on for many, many years. And it's just on the corner of Montreal and, I could see it there. It's right on where the graveyard is. It's Laurier and Montreal. And it's kind of witness. It's how effective, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where you just stand and you witness for life. And we get a lot of mixed reactions. A lot of people actually honk in support, and some people not so much. But there's a second event too. We didn't protest them or announce them at the same time because we thought it'd make some confusion. But the 40 Days for Life, this is another one that takes place downtown. And this is a little witness that parishes often will sign up. Sometimes hope for the whole day. I don't know how many parishes are able to do that. We were asked a few years ago just to pick a time, like even an hour, and say, okay, this is when the pastor will be there, and this is when people are invited to join us. And if you know the 40 Days for Life, it's just on Spark Street, just sort of down close to where the clinic is, and to pray for life. And it's going to be this Friday at between 1 and 2. I know there's a little confusion about that. It is 1 to 2 that I will be there. And of course, people can be there anytime during the day. It's not limited to that. But that's the time I'm going to be there. And a few people I think will be joining me. And really, I just quietly pray the rosary. That's really all it is. It's hard. I mean, it's cold. It's not. Sometimes we get a little bit of pushback. Generally, just get ignored from people. So that's fine. But I think it is a sort of sense to witness. It's one of those things that in my life, I think, when I come to an end and I'm asked, what did I do? Did I stand up? Did I try? It's a bit of a token effort, but I think it's done authentically. Like let's just keep reminding the world that not everybody in the world is okay with this. Like that's an important thing. But tied into that, an initiative that the diocese actually, it's kind of my role working with the chancery a little bit. And that's going to happen this Saturday. So again, what's happening? We had a couple of Sundays ago, and then this Friday, the 40 days. And this Saturday, the day after, we're also doing, this is going to be a special Mass. It's being offered 9 o'clock Mass, so same time as our normal Saturday morning Mass. But it's going to be extended out to parents, particularly moms, I think, who have lost little ones. And just a Mass. Again, Father Kevin from the cathedral, he's going to be preaching here. He worked with Father David for a long time, and he's going to do the homily and kind of just to pray for the little ones that have been lost. It's a very painful, very private thing. It's part of what we've been working on in the parish here. There's a bit of an area behind the grotto of Mary that wasn't really used. It just was grown over. It had some, it's nice enough. It's green, some trees, but it wasn't really. It had come almost a bit of a compost is a bit strong, but a place where people put stuff that wanted to go away, including me. So that's what it was used for. So we cleaned that all out, and we put down stone, river stone, much as the same as we have in the front of the church when you come in. And we put some large stones there now. Just today, we're actually doing that this morning. Literally, like I was swinging on the end of this thing, along with Will and Gail. And it's a place to sit and to ponder, and it's kind of reflective. It's a bit somber in the sense that it's mostly river stone with some large rocks, and we're going to put some plants there. One fairly large one representing a parent, and a smaller one representing a child. Now it's going to take a few years for those to grow up to get those proportions right. But I'm kind of, I just find it, I just, if you're going to be pro-life, then you have to be pro-life. Like this is part of the other side of the equation. Yes, to continue to witness to life and to provide healing for moms. And I think it's an important part of this. So check it out. It's there. It's called the Memorial Garden. It's kind of, some ways it's when I was in Israel, traveling in the Holy Land, I went to the Holocaust Museum, and it's a bit, that's a really heavy, obviously, subject and piece of history, but it's that same idea of making it kind of a simple space. It's a bit like this, and then it has like one torch that continues to burn. And it's sort of a similar idea, a plant that's growing and still having life, even though there's been a loss. So that's this Saturday. So again, everybody's welcome to come. It could be pretty full though. We've had a very large response, which is indicative of just how big a problem this is and how little is being done to address it. So that's this Saturday morning at the 9 o'clock Mass, and there'll be a little reception afterwards, and maybe a chance if people want to go check the garden. It's not really finished yet, but though it's it's going to take a couple of years now to grow up the perennials and make it a bit more life filled. But for now, I think it's very good, well done, and then we did it fairly quickly too, so it's good stuff. And even one more event is Sunday night. I'm going to be speaking for again 40 Days for Life. They asked me to do, it's kind of a mid-season kind of middle of the 40 days, 20 days in, and just to do a little prayer to kind of rally the troops a bit and kind of keep people focused on what we're talking about. And I sort of think these themes run through this. Like, it's a movie that was suggested to me that I watched. Now, this is not an easy movie to watch. It's not particularly graphic or anything, but the subject matter, again, is very, very difficult. It's called A Place of Interest, and it shows the commandant at one of the concentration camps. And why it's hard to watch is because you see very little actual violence, if any. It's just so normal. And this is the thing when I'm standing on that corner sometimes when I'm praying at the 40 Days for Life. People walking by, people getting coffees. Even the kind of the protest itself has become a little bit routine. And there are things happening just around the block, and it's sort of, this is just normal, and we're not allowed to talk about it and move on. And I think we have to stay and witness, and we have to keep talking about it, even though it's going to be misunderstood and often a bit distorted. But I think it's important. It's kind of it goes into my fourth point, which is we're talking about my homily. Often I'm just going to refer to what I'm preaching on this weekend, and it's where the two I think it's the two apostles, and I can't remember. It's James and Andrew, I think, come to Jesus and say, "Can you do us a favor? Once you do a favor," which is always bad when people ask you the favor first before they tell you what it is. Can we sit at your right and your left when you come into your glory? And the Lord kind of takes him up a bit and says, first, are you able to drink the chalice that I drink? Are you able to have the baptism I'm going to be baptized? And he said, well, we are able. Well, I hope you know what you're getting into and what you're promising. But he says, just you will. And they all did, really, all except one of the apostles, John, lived his whole life, but he lived in exile. So really every one of those guys, the original, at least 11 of the 12, and then the replacement, all were martyred for the faith. And John, with the one exception, was spent his life in exile. They paid the price. But then he goes on about how the world lords it over them. The leaders make a big fuss, and really it's about service and laying down your life for what you believe in. And that's something I've been pondering a lot. Like, I think it's just I'm going to be careful because this weekend I'm talking. Anytime you talk about politics, especially here in Ottawa, it's difficult. And of course, there's an election going on in the U.S. And no, I'm not going to pick a side. I'm not an American, and I'm not voting. But I have been watching it, particularly on social media. I have an interest in this, just how the world sees things and trying to understand a little bit better where people's heads are at. But you get drawn into this, the drama of this, and how it's so polarized now that there seems to be no common ground and no desire for common ground. Greatness this way or greatness that way, and not much between, where reality is, most of life is between extremes. And it's a really strange time we live in, and where it's all heading. And I don't really know. I'm going to try to stick with what I do, again, witnessing and ministering and kind of keeping my life small. But I was remembering, this is a thing I may get into or not. My homily is pretty early, and it's been a full week, so I haven't had a chance to think much about it yet. But I remember, again, I've been talking about this conference I went to in London, England, a couple of years ago. It was the Alpha Leadership Conference. And I remember they do things differently in Alpha. I've always felt them very thoughtful because they bring up very good speakers. These are, again, for a person who speaks, like I do this stuff, on a much more modest scale. Just to see the quality of their speakers, I was very, very impressed with that. And they often do interviews, and they brought a lady up, and she was a recent immigrant to England. And fairly quickly, when she arrived there, her husband left her pretty high and dry with 3 children and went back to the country of origin. And she was pretty much left on her own and not with a lot of resource. And so but she's a very, very faithful woman. And so she put her heart and soul into raising her children and doing the best she could and sacrificing. And just, there was this kind of a beautiful story, like, of all the, the politicians and the movers and shakers and all the, I guess the church people and whatever, bishops or cardinals or very successful mega pastors. They choose this lady who just quietly, effectively raised her family in a very faithful and intentional way. And then they brought the kids up, and I won't get into the details but it was one guy was in the military, and he's just, you could tell, top drawer. Second, her daughter was a communications officer and just actually signed on with Alpha, but world class, just top notch. And you kind of think, okay, 2 out of 3, that's pretty good. Right? I just felt bad for the third guy how could he possibly live up to the family standard? And of course, he's gone on to become a pastor and is doing great work with Alpha. And you just think of what one person can do so effectively for a family. I think a lot of people, but that's what I think delights God. The LOM, the small ones, the little efforts made in His name that bear more fruit than we know. This election will come and go. I don't know all of it. I don't understand all of it. I don't claim to. This will come and go, as politicians do, as leaders and kings and nobles of old. Ozymandias, look at my works, ye mighty in despair. Life will continue. And I think us as believers have to show that credible alternative, or maybe we're not the flashiest, maybe we don't get center stage, we don't get on the front page of the newspaper unless it's something bad. But to quietly live out our lives faithfully for God, I think is really the goal. I mean, I use this example quite a bit, is this notion of what is a saint. Like, I picked this up from a meme sometime on social media. That a saint, the definition of a saint is someone who does consistently what anyone could do occasionally. Definition of a saint, someone who does consistently what anyone could do occasionally. What this woman did consistently, I think, all of us on our best day might be able to achieve, but she could do it consistently enough that it seemed to really make a difference. Let that be our inspiration. Whether you get, banquets in your honor or whether you're at the head of the parade, and that's not the goal. Eternal life is the goal. Eternity with God is the goal. And willing to sacrifice and serve for one's neighbor, to choose the good for the other, this definition of love. So I don't know where that all reaches you or not. I know there's some pretty heavy topics, and I kept trying to keep it just so, under the surface. I mean, because our world has some pretty heavy things happening in it. But I do encourage you, again, the Friday at between 1 and 2, if you want to join me down at the 40 Days for Life Center, I'm happy to have some support. Again, my MO, I pray the rosary quietly and pray for better days and maybe a conversion of hearts and minds. But let's all do consistently what we can and believe that God is doing much, much more. Amen? May the good Lord continue to watch over you. May the saints and angels intercede for you, and our Blessed Mother wrap you in the mantle of her peace. May God bless you, keep you now in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.